Friday, November 4th. See from there, the book choice was due today. If you're wanting a hero shirt, the money was also due today, so you're kind of out of luck. We do have the charity shoe drive going, where you can bring in the shoes, donate them any size and type, as long as they don't have holes or are torn up. It gets you 3 points for each one you bring in. Tie game was famous paintings this week. And then from there, let's see what we all have. You should not, hopefully, be able to see what we have written down, because I'm going to see how much of it is still in your brain to help you out. Oh. The first god that got a throne was? Zeus. What do we say for Zeus? King of lightning. And then you do the little, there you go, the throwing of your lightning bolt. The first one he gives a throne to is? Hera. Well done, Queen of all gods. She's Mrs. Zeus, King of all gods. Queen of all the gods, and then the difference between a crown and a moose. The next one to get a throne is? Poseidon. Where Poseidon comes in. God of the oceans and water and squishy stuff. And some of you should never get thrown into water because you will drown if that's your idea of swimming. And the next one to get a throne is?
Poseidon.
Hades. Why is Hades not listed?
Because he lost it.
He lost it. He gives it up. So the next one to get a throne and keep it is?
Demeter.
She is?
God of
rain and harvest. And that's where, there you go, you're wonderful. Well done with your lawnmower. The next one to get a throne is? Hestia. Why is Hestia not up there?
Because she lost it.
She's so nice.
She's nice and gives it up, which is hopefully the story we'll get to at the very end today. And then he gives thrones to children, and his first 2 kids to get thrones are?
His
sons, Hephaestus and Ares. Hephaestus is the only god that is?
Crippled.
Who cripples him?
His dad. Legend says his mom.
And sometimes saying his mom. And he lands on an island, and who trains him on the
Cyclops.
island? What do they train him to do?
Make metal. Craftsman.
That's where he becomes the god of metalsmiths and the whole hammering things. And then his brother, who they do not get along with, is?
Ares.
And he is the god of?
War.
What do we know about him as the god of war?
He's a witch.
There you go. He is the god of wussy. And there you go. It goes across. It's sort of like...
Are we going to have to do that when we get up?
Absolutely. Did we get to the story of Leto?
No.
With the next one? Yes. With the swan?
Yes. No.
So this was Zeus going out and trying to be friendly again, finds a Titan girl. She says no, so he takes the form of a swan. And did we get to Hera finding out?
Yes.
And she kept running
with the snake.
Got thrown an island.
And then Zeus broke it by cutting the
And then the island.
So we got to the running.
And then her children. And then her children came out full grown.
We got pretty close.
And they was mad. They tried to get back at Zeus for whoever's
They spent their childhood
her.
So did they kill the snake?
Yeah. No.
Okay. So that's where we got. So she is running and she curses Zeus. She ends up running and jumping to the island. Once she gets to the island,
He comes and cuts it off so it won't be connected to him no more.
Well done. At that point, once this is finally broken and she is no longer on the land of Zeus, she can finally break the curse, relaxes, and as soon as she does,
she has her baby.
Out come the 2 babies.
They got mad.
The 2 babies are Artemis and Apollo. Artemis and Apollo are very upset about having to spend their entire young adult lives trapped inside of their mom. So because of that, they come out a little on the grumpy side. And they want to kill the snake that's been running after their mom, making her run this entire time. So what they decide to do is, because they're on the island and the snake's back on the mainland, they're going to shoot the snake with bows and arrows. So they start making bows and arrows out of all the trees that are around them. Where do they get the string for the bows? It's easy. They use their umbilical cords. And so the story is they pull off their own umbilical cords, pull it off, and then string it onto it to make itself bows and arrows, and then turn around and start shooting the snake, killing it dead. As soon as they kill the snake, Hera sees all of this happen, and she actually feels bad. Not for Leto. She doesn't like Leto. She's like, oh, that girl deserves to suffer. But she feels bad for Artemis and Apollo. She's like, those two poor kids spent their entire childhood growing up inside of a parent's tummy. I know exactly what that was like. Because where did Hera spend her childhood?
In her mom's stomach.
Not in her mom.
In her dad's stomach.
In Kronos' tummy. And so she understands that she had to spend her childhood in Kronos' tummy. She's like, I feel bad for these two kids. What I will do is I'm going to bring both of those kids up to Mount Olympus and make them the next two kids to get thrones. So Hera is actually the one to give thrones to Artemis and Apollo. She still doesn't forgive Leto, but she's at least forgiving those two, saying, it's not your fault that your mom made poor choices. Because they used bow and arrows to kill the snake, they both become connected to bows and arrows with their pictures, or with their being the god of. But because they're also twins, they get connected to something else. And so up above, well, kind of above where Fernando is, we have Artemis and Apollo, and you can see they both have the bow and arrow, and he has the same bow and arrow, and then the things in their background. Behind Tyler here, we have Artemis and Apollo, bow and arrow, and things in the background. And then over here, we have Artemis and Apollo, where you have the same thing, bows and arrows. And the other thing they're connected to, besides bow and arrow, is
Sun and light.
the sun and the moon, day and night. And the Greeks believed that the sun and the moon were connected, just like Artemis and Apollo are connected. So Artemis becomes the god of the moon and hunting, are the two main areas under her influence. So her, god of moon and hunting. Anytime that, if you were a werewolf and didn't want to go out and attack people, you would pray to her. Or if you wanted to go out hunting and you wanted to go shoot yourself a rabbit to eat because it's delicious, you would pray to her. She was the god of moon and hunting. The hand sign for her, well, pretty much every time we see her, she's out hunting something using her bow and arrow. So you're going to channel your inner Katniss and pull back your string
What you
of a
do?
bow. Realize there is a difference between I'm hunting with a bow and I'm working out at the gym. And so it comes back that way. Apollo is a god of the sun. And he doesn't do much with the whole bow and arrow thing. He has them, but that's not the main thing he focuses on. Apollo ends up focusing in a different area. One, he's the sun god. He drives the sun across the sky. It was thought that he drove the actual sun chariot that went from one side to the other. And another thing it turns out is Apollo was incredibly good looking. Chicks dug him. So he decided to focus on that. And he becomes the god of anything girls like. Girls like music, he becomes the god of music. Girls like poetry, he becomes the god of poetry. Girls like big rippling abs, he becomes the god of big rippling abs. Anything that chicks dig, he claims as his own. So he becomes the god of the sun and hotties. Because he was considered one of those hot dudes. What about Ares? I thought Ares was good looking. He was. Ares was good looking, but he was not as attractive as Apollo. Plus, Apollo was a sweet talker. He was good with the ladies. Ares was not. Ares was like, me good looking, you look at me, grrr. And girls like, you're kind of weird. And he's like, yeah. Whereas Apollo would recite poetry at you. For Apollo, the hand sign for him, well, if you're outside and it's really hot, or if you see that hot guy and you're like, oh my god, did you see him? You're going to do the same thing. Rrr. Fan yourself like you're hot. Oh, Mr. Brovicast, I see hot guys all the time. I know exactly what you're talking about. Just like that. So, Artemis, god of moon and hunting. Apollo, god of sun and hotties. So now, we have those two. Chavez?
So, since Apollo is Zeus' son, do you think that he got his sweet talking from Zeus?
Probably a little bit inherited. Although Zeus wasn't as good at talking to ladies, Zeus just went off the whole I have power thing. His sweet talk was like, hey baby, I'm Zeus. And they're like, oh, you're powerful. Whereas Apollo's like, bling, your eyes are like raindrops. And they're like, oh. And so they had a slightly different game, if you will. For our next one, it goes all the way back to when Kronos overthrew Uranus. And every time he did that jumpy, cutty thing, what happened every time he cut into Uranus?
Chunks came
Yeah,
off.
chunks came out. And when these chunks hit Mother Earth, they formed creatures. Well, one time, it fell and hit the ocean. And when it hit the ocean, it formed a Titan. And this Titan floated out in the ocean for years, and no one knew of her existence. She just floated out there. Years go by. Zeus and Poseidon and Hades overthrow their father. She's still out there floating. Zeus starts filling in thrones. She's still out there floating. No one pays any attention to her. till one day, as she floats along, she ends up hitting some beach sandy shore. And as soon as her foot goes from water to land, another god knows of her existence, because she is the most attractive titan to ever exist. And as soon as her foot hits land, this god knows she exists. And what god is going to know of her existence?
Zeus.
Why would Zeus know?
Because he's the god of land.
He's the god of land. And as soon as her foot hits land, she goes into his realm. And the god that he knows suddenly exists? Aphrodite. And as soon as her foot hits land, Zeus is up on Mount Olympus. He's like, hey, I think next week we should... What's that? There's a hot girl somewhere. I'll be right back. And he takes off running. Runs down to the beach where she is, like... He's like, hey, how are you doing? Oh, I'm Zeus. But turns out, she is so attractive. She is the most attractive person he's ever seen. And for the first time in Zeus's life, he has trouble talking to someone. And he gets all... He's like, you're kind of creepy. He's like, and so it doesn't work out well. But Zeus really likes staring at her. He's just like, hubba hubba. And she's like, dude, you're creepy. He's like, it gets worse. He goes, listen, I'm Zeus, god of everything you see, except for the ocean. Don't look at that. And I would love for you to come back to my house, because I have a bunch of chairs, and I'm going to give you one of the chairs at my house. And she goes, oh, that just makes it more creepy. He's like, I know. Why don't you come back? She goes, okay. And she agrees. And so she goes back to this strange guy's house. Oh, stories end powerfully that way. And goes back to his house, and he gives her a throne on Mount Olympus. Once she has a throne on Mount Olympus, things go poorly. Because every guy on Mount Olympus spends all their time staring at her. As soon as she sits down, every dude goes, hey, and starts waving at her. All of the females also stare at her, but they're doing stabby motions. He's just going to stab you in the head because all the boys keep staring at you. And so Zeus goes, all right, nothing's getting done on Mount Olympus. Everyone either wants to date you or kill you. So that's not going to work. So let's get you married. So he decides Aphrodite has to get married. And she's like, yay, who do I get to marry? He's like, well, you're going to marry someone in this room. She's like, do I get to pick? He goes, no, that'd be ridiculous. She goes, do I get to marry you? He's like, what, me? No, I'm already married. That'd be ridiculous. She's like, do I get to marry the squishy guy juggling fish? He's like, nope, you can't marry him. He had his chance and he lost it. She's like, how about the dark guy over there playing the guitar? He's like, nope, he doesn't like people. She's like, oh. Ooh, do I get to marry that really good-looking guy who just stubbed his toe and started crying? He's like, nope, he's a jerk. She's like, oh. Ooh, how about the guy who's like all radiant and sunshiny and playing the guitar? It's like, nope, you can't marry him. She's like, well, there's only one person left, and he's kind of ugly and crippled. And Zeus goes, well, that's your husband. Oh. And who is it she gets to marry? Hephaestus. This is Zeus's way of apologizing to Hephaestus for crippling him for life. He's like, hey, son, remember I threw you out of a window and crippled you for the rest of your life? I'm sorry. Here's a hot chick. Hephaestus is like, Dad, you can throw me out of a window whenever you want. And so he forgives his father, and Hephaestus and Aphrodite get married. Hephaestus, super excited. Aphrodite, super unhappy. She's like, I don't want to be with the ugly crippled guy. You see this? This can't be with that. So she decides to celebrate her marriage by going and getting a boyfriend. And she goes out to get a boyfriend. She chooses the person that she thinks will most irritate her husband. Because there's one man he hates most in the world. That is Ares, his brother. And so she immediately starts dating Ares right in front of Hephaestus just to irritate him, because that's the kind of person she is. Which is why over here behind Nick, I have the 3 posters. There's Ares, then his brother Hephaestus, and I put her between the 2 of them. So she's married to this one, dating that one. So I tried to put the posters in a way to help remind you of it. Same thing with this poster. Hephaestus is sitting there. He's married to Aphrodite. She's not paying attention to him. She's lovingly looking into the eyes of Ares, while Hephaestus is giving that I'm going to kill you look. But Mr. Brovicast, I thought she was the god of love. She was the god of love. She was the god of loving yourself. She was like, I love a lot. Me. Because I'm the most lovable person out there. Yeah, she was also the god of vanity and the god of not very nice people. But she was incredibly beautiful. So she becomes the god of love and beauty, but she is not a good person. Her and Ares get along wonderfully because they're pretty much the same person. beautiful on the outside, nasty and rotten on the inside. Aphrodite, there are almost no good stories of her ever doing something nice. Even being the god of love, she was not a good person. The hand sign for her, we're going to take that C, and you're going to bend your thumb down, curl your fingers. Your other C, thumb down, curl the fingers, and you're going to throw a gang sign. Wow! And so it's the most adorable gang sign ever. I have seen kids who can do the other gang sign, which is where you can do your fingers, and you're like, oh, I'm like part of the 92nd Street Heartthrobs. And so however that little thing works along those two, it's a heart. And so whatever that works, whatever your particular gang sign is with your crew, that's fine with me.
You teaching us about gang?
So you're going to create a heart with your hands. Just don't throw your gang sign on the streets. After Aphrodite, we have our next god. We've already covered this next one, so I don't have to give her backstory because she sprang from Zeus's head when he had a headache.
Athena.
And that's where Athena comes in. And all that time, Athena has been sitting in Zeus's brain throughout all of this because he gobbled her mom way back before he became king of Mount Olympus. And so now, Athena finally pops out. And when she pops out of his brain, she becomes the god of?
Wisdom and war.
Nicely done. The god of wisdom and war. To help you remember she's the god of wisdom and war, we're going to point to the place she was born from. His brain. And so you're going to point to your brain. For those of you who don't know where your brain is, it explains a lot. Brain, point to there. Or Denisha getting rid of her points. You can't attack the poor kid. Then, let's see. Ooh, at this point, we have now used up 11 thrones. We have 1 throne left. Oh, we don't have 2 thrones left. Because one god still has a throne, even though they're not on the list.
Hades.
Not Hades. Hestia. She's still up there and has a throne at this time. So Zeus has 1 throne left. But no more being friendly with Titans, because that got him in trouble. So now he decides to expand his friendly level. And he goes out and finds a girl that is a nymph. Nymphs were like elves. They had wood nymphs and they had sea nymphs. They're like little elfy creatures that lived out there. Zeus finds a nymph by the name of Maya. M-A-I-A. And he goes and finds Maya. He's like, hey, I'm Zeus. She's like, hi, I'm Maya. He's like, let's be friendly. She goes, okie dokie. And they're friendly. The problem is, nymphs and titans aren't meant to be together. So weird things happen after this particular bout of friendliness. The same day that they're friendly, Maya goes, I'm pregnant. He goes, what? She goes, I'm really pregnant. And out pops her belly. He's like, whoa, that's kind of weird. Well, that's not going to work because my wife won't appreciate this. So we're going to have to hide you in a cave. And so he takes Maya and puts her in a cave up on a mountain. He goes, stay in here, don't come out. Because if my wife finds out about it, this is not going to go well. I'll come back and check on you in a couple days. She goes, okie dokie, and Zeus takes off. Later that afternoon, she gives birth, and out pops a little baby. This baby moves super quickly, because apparently the whole nymph titan thing, we have issues. And as soon as this baby pops out, he's like, yay, I can't concentrate, let's run around all the place, wind sprint, and starts taking off back and forth across the whole cave. She's like, whoa, you're an exhausting wee little child. And she's like, you know what, I'm going to take a nap. This baby, by the name of Hermes, does what any newborn baby would do when your mom takes a nap. He decides to go for a walk by himself down to the woods. He's like, I'm taking off down to the woods. And he pulls on his little diaper and takes off down into the woods. As he's walking through the woods that evening, he finds this big pile of glow-in-the-dark cows just roaming through the woods. He's like, ooh, glow-in-the-dark moo-moos. And just like any baby who's off by himself in the dark at night finding glow-in-the-dark cows, he decides to steal them. He's like, those are my glow-in-the-dark moo-moos. And he grabs all the cows and starts smacking them in the butts, leading them all the way back up to the cave where he was with his mom. Takes all the moo-moos to the back of the cave, hides them back there, then goes and pulls out one moo-moo to sacrifice to the gods. He's like, I don't want to get in trouble with the gods if I do glow-in-the-dark moo-moos. So he pulls out his gigantic knife that every baby carries with them and sacrifices the cow right there. And sacrifices the cow, offers up the guts, and then finally falls asleep. It's been an exhausting day. The next morning, Apollo shows up in the woods looking for his sacred cattle. They're not there. He's like, where's my glow-in-the-dark cows? I know I plugged them in last night. And he can't find them anywhere. Eventually, he follows the trail all the way back up to this cave. Gets to the cave, can't find any cows except for one dead sacrificed cow and bits, some lady sleeping on the ground, and some small boy. Apollo goes ballistic and starts yelling at the lady. Why'd you kill one of my cows? What's wrong with you, lady? And the girl wakes up and she's like, who are you yelling at? He's like, I'm yelling at you. She's like, I didn't kill any cows. She's like, what's that dead cow? And so they start yelling back and forth. Their screaming wakes up baby Hermes. Baby Hermes wakes up, sees his mom yelling, sees this other guy yelling. He's like, bored. And starts wandering around the cave. As he wanders the cave, he finds a turtle shell in there. Picks up the turtle shell, starts bopping around on it, boppity 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 bop bop bop. And he's like, ooh, I have an idea. Pulls out his knife that every baby carries and starts poking it into the turtle shell, making holes. Donk, 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 and puts little holes all around the shell. Goes over to the big pile of cow guts, pulls out one of the intestines, and strings it back and forth across this turtle shell. Pulls it tight, yeet, ties it off, and then starts strumming it. Bling, bling. Apollo, in the middle of yelling at Maya, is like, what is wrong with you, lady? How dare you kill a cat? What you doing? And the kid's like, bling, playing this little turtle shell with cow guts on it. And Apollo's like, you know what? That makes some pretty good music. Hermes is like, no it does. Apollo's like, you know what? I bet chicks would dig that. And Hermes is like, I bet they would. And Apollo's like, I like things that chicks dig. And Hermes goes, I bet you do. Hermes goes, I'll happily trade this to you. Apollo goes, you want to trade me that turtle shell with the cow guts on it? And Hermes goes, bling, I do. And Apollo agrees. He's like, what do you want for it? And Hermes goes, I will take all of your glow-in-the-dark cows. Apollo goes, I don't have my glow-in-the-dark cows. They're missing. Hermes goes, oh, they're right over there. And Apollo turns around like, hey, my cows. Like, hey, Apollo. And he's like, all right, so you want me to trade you all those cows for that turtle shell with the guts on it? And Hermes goes, yes, because this, bling, the chicks will dig it, and you're going to like it. I definitely think you should do it. Apollo agrees. He's like, you know what, kid? You drive a hard bargain. I like it. So he just shake hands, and they shake little hands on it. Shaky hands. And he takes the turtle shell, leaves all the cows there with Hermes, goes back up to Mount Olympus. As he's walking around Mount Olympus, strumming it, bling, bling, Zeus sees him. He goes, Apollo, what are you doing? Apollo goes, well, I'm playing this brand new instrument I got called a lyre, which you'll see in almost every picture of Apollo. He's got a version of it there, stringed instrument. Same thing over here, stringed instrument that's up there. Same thing over here, stringed instrument. Different versions, the same idea. It was a hollow shell with the little strings going across it. Zeus is like, that's pretty cool. Where'd you get that? Apollo goes, I got it from a baby. Zeus goes, you stole that from a baby? He goes, no, I traded it to a baby. He goes, well, what'd the baby get? Apollo goes, my herd of sacred cows. Zeus goes, you traded a herd of sacred cows for a turtle shell and guts. Apollo's like, you make it sound bad. He's like, that's because it is. He's like, what kind of baby was this? So Apollo tells him where this baby is. Zeus seeks out this baby, finds Maya, and he's like, hey, I remember you. She's like, hi Zeus, welcome back. He's like, who's that teenage kid with you? She goes, that's your son. He's like, we were just together yesterday. She goes, he's magical. Zeus is so impressed by this kid when he sees him. He's like, did you convince Apollo to give up a turtle shell? Or give up cows for a turtle shell? Hermes is like, yes, I did. I'm a fast talker. He's like, I also stole the cows first. He's like, wait a minute, you stole the cows, traded them, and you're hyperactive and run nonstop? You're my kind of kid. So he decides to bring Hermes up to Mount Olympus and give him a job to burn off that excess energy. And what job does he get?
God of all messenger.
He becomes the messenger of the gods. To help burn off that energy with all the running, he gets his own throne, actually the final throne, on Mount Olympus. And the hand sign for him is pretty much every time we see Hermes, he's doing the same thing, which is hyperactively running. So you're going to hyperactively run in place. You mean like this, Mr. Brovicast? Yeah, just like that. Now, Zeus has filled in all of his thrones. Years go by with these 11 and Hestia as the 12 Olympians. Till eventually we're going to create the new race of humans, which is a story we'll get to next week. And once humans exist, Zeus decides, you know what? I've never been friendly with a human before. let's give it a try. So Zeus decides to be friendly with a human. So he goes and takes a human form and goes down to earth in human form and finds a girl by the name of Semele. Semele, like Simile, but with all E's. And he and Semele end up being friendly. He just shows up like, hey baby, I'm Zeus. I've got a beard. She's like, oh, you're adorable. And they're friendly. Well, after they're friendly and she becomes pregnant, Zeus goes, listen, I have bad news. She goes, what is it? He goes, you can't tell anyone that I'm the father of the baby, because if you do and Hera finds out, she's going to kill you. So you have to keep this a secret. Can you swear to do that? And she goes, I'll keep it a secret. I'll never tell anybody. He goes, oh, thank goodness. He's like, well, I'll come back and check on you every couple months. Zeus leaves her alone, and time goes by. As she gets more pregnant, she begins to show. People keep asking her, hey, are you pregnant? She's like, uh-huh. They go, who's the father? She's like, oh, I can't tell you. But as more and more people keep asking, she finally breaks down. And one day, she tells one of her friends, well, you can't tell anyone, but the father of my baby is Zeus. They're like, really? She's like, yeah. And her friend's like, that's so cool. And her friend has such a big reaction to it that the next time someone asks, she tells them too. She's like, yeah, you can't tell anyone, it's a secret, but the father of my baby is Zeus. And then eventually, every time someone asks, she's like, yeah, Zeus is the baby daddy. Yep, Zeus is the father. And every time she walks through town, you're like, hey, how are you? She's like, yeah, did you say baby daddy? Zeus is the baby daddy. And she tells everyone she can, Zeus is the father of this child. Naturally, this gets back to Hera. And one day, Hera walking through Mount Olympus, and other gods like, hey, I heard, Zeus is the father of some human child. And Hera goes, what now? Like, yeah, there's some girl down in this village. He's telling everyone that Zeus is the father of her child. Hera's like, table flip. She's like, She's like, all right, I'm done going after and killing all these women that Zeus has been friendly with. I'm going to solve this a different way. I'm going to make Zeus kill her instead. So she comes up with a plan to make Zeus kill the girl. So she goes and takes the form of an old woman and goes down to earth. And she becomes this old woman. She wanders through this town where Semele is until she finds the pregnant girl. She's like, hey, girl, are you pregnant? And Semele was like, hey, random old lady I've never met before. Yeah, Zeus is the father. And Hera goes, oh, really? How do you know? And Semele goes, oh, well, he had a beard and he said, my name is Zeus. Hera goes, that's it? That's your only evidence? And Semele goes, yeah, that was the only evidence I needed. He had a beard and he said, I'm Zeus. Why would he lie to me? Hera goes, well, here's the problem. I have a feeling that he is probably lying to you. There's a good chance it's just some random guy and he's just lying to you about being Zeus. Semele goes, oh, okay, well, how can I get him to prove it? She goes, here's how you get him to prove it. You need to have him show you his true form. It was believed that gods had a true form. They could shapeshift and we could see them when they took like a human form, but in their true majestic titan form, it would blow our minds. If you saw a god in their true form, you would just melt, like, and you just disappear into dust. She goes, but Hera convinces Semele otherwise and says, here's what you need to do. The next time this guy shows up, what you're going to do is you tell him that if he's really Zeus, he needs to show you the true form. And Semele goes, no, crazy old lady, if I see him in his true form, I'll die. Hera goes, no, you won't. That's a rumor. Semele goes, what do you mean it's a rumor? Hera goes, well, it's a little known fact that if you see a god in their true form, they have to marry you and take you up to Mount Olympus. That's why no human ever sees a god in their true form. Because if you did, they marry you. Semele goes, really? Hera goes, yes, I would never lie to you. And Semele goes, okay, the next time I see that guy, I'm going to say, you show me your true form or I'm going to kick him out. And Hera goes, yes, that's a good idea. And then Hera walks away laughing. Months go by. Finally, Semele's gotten very pregnant, and Zeus finally shows up and knocks on the door. He's like, hey, baby, I'm back. Semele kicks open the door. He's like, who do you think you are? He's like, whoa, I'm Zeus. She goes, you ain't Zeus. He's like, I am Zeus. I have a beard. I said I'm Zeus. She's like, you ain't Zeus. If you were Zeus, you'd show me your true form. He's like, whoa, you don't want to see my true form. If you saw my true form, it would kill you. She's like, uh-huh, that's what you said, you big scuzz bucket. You're just trying to make excuses. I don't believe a single thing you say. If you would see me your true... And she starts getting in his face and yelling, and their fingers snapping, so her head's going back and forth, and she's yelling. And finally, he's like, listen, you want...
Keep going.
And there we'll.
That got really intense there.
One day we'll find out what happens when she sees Zeus's true form.
She dies.
And we have a quiz on Monday too over the same information, but as long as you've been here, you'll be fine.